Hey everyone, it's Nightharo here, and hey, I'm back from Gen Con, where obviously I was cosplaying as Goku. And today, what I want to talk about is some recent patch updates that we talked about this live on stream, but sitting down and doing the math, this stuff is absolutely wild. So hopefully, we're gonna give some good developer feedback here on what's going on with Nightblade, specifically with their Darkcloak. All right, let's jump into it. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna compare Darkcloak from a Nightblade to one of the best in slot heals, Polar Winds, and let's just see how they measure up. So Darkcloak now has been changed. So for those who don't know, whenever you're not moving currently on live with the Nightblade and you're using your Darkcloak, you get your heal increased by 150%. So you multiply the base heal times 2.5%. Or I'm sorry, by 2.5, not 2.5%. So it ends up being a pretty decent heal over time. It lasts for 5 seconds, but you got to not be moving. So this is really a pretty niche skill. It can be fairly useful, can be not very useful. It just depends. And what the changes are is that now instead of procking the extra healing whenever you're not moving, which was always kind of sucked, honestly. It doesn't really make any sense. Why is a Nightblade like all about not moving? I'm not really sure. But now it's whenever you're holding block. And this is an interesting and different change. I think it's a bad one, but other reasonable minds might disagree with me on that one. But since they changed it to where you're blocking now instead of not moving, I guess the thought is you'll be using this a lot more. Instead, now they reduce the duration from 5 seconds to 3 seconds. So this is a significant loss. It's a 1/3 loss to the actual ticks of healing, because used to be you would get 6 ticks of healing because you get one immediately and then one every second for 5 seconds at the end of that second. And now it's one immediately and then for the 3 seconds, the end of each second. So 4 total heal ticks of that. Now, here's me on live using this with a reasonably set up Nightblade, not perfectly set up. I just threw some stuff on for this testing, and you can see that I'm getting 6,000, a little over 6,000 heals per second with this ability while not moving. And that's really what we're going to focus on today, is the not moving portion. Okay, so what does that end up? Well, we end up with a little over 2,400 heals over the course of 3 seconds. Now, you might look at that and go, you know what? And just like the developers at ZOS, you might look at that and go, you know what? That's not that bad. That's actually a pretty good healing efficiency ratio. This seems like a really good skill. We're in a really good spot. However, the issue here comes along when you have to think about, well, when are you going to use this skill? Well, you're going to use it after taking a heavy attack, right? Because you need to heal up then. And you're going to use it whenever you might have a lot of dots on you, like really heavy dots. Well, that's kind of weird. Aren't those times we normally wouldn't be holding block and we'd be using that time to regen stamina? So after we just got heavy, we blocked it. Now we're casting skills. We're letting go of block to let our stamina recover. If we're taking heavy dot damage, normally you don't want to be blocking during those time periods because you're going to use your stamina to cast things like Vigor or other stamina abilities that will help keep you alive. Reference my many streams here on YouTube of my hard mode beside group that I'm currently in, where I'm running Vigor on one of my characters, both for the proc for everybody else, but also to help keep myself topped off on health, because that's a very dot-heavy fight. Well, then if you got a whole block to get the extra healing, isn't that really just an extra cost to that heal? I think it is. I think that's the only rational and reasonable way to think about it. Well, how much stamina per second is that costing? Well, it turns out it's about 1,600. And it depends on what your spec is and what have you, but 1,600 is a pretty good, like, lower end. It could be up to several thousand. It just depends. But 1,600 is a lot of extra cost in stamina. It essentially doubles the cost of this ability if you're holding block for most of these seconds that this ability is ticking. All right, now let's compare this to Polar Winds. So Polar Winds is going to hit for about 14,000 just on the initial hit. Now, it's a little bit weird here because every 2 seconds after that, you'll get a heal over time tick. But I think it starts when you start to cast the ability, and then it has a channel time, so it kind of throws off where these GCDs exactly are falling. I don't think it's that big of a deal for our analysis today, but just know that it is a little bit different. After a couple of seconds, we're going to get another almost 4,000 heals per second, and then every 2 seconds after that, on the dot, we'll be getting about that 4,000 heals. Well, what does that mean? Well, it's twice as efficient as far as Magicka as the base cost of Darkcloak, holding block and not counting any of that extra stam, which again is going to over double the cost of this ability, when it normally cost 4,100, where now it's going to be costing, an extra 40 700 just in stamina. So kind of wild. Total healing done. Again, you're looking at about twice. Polar Winds, not quite twice, but significantly more healing. And again, Polar Winds is like the best in slot heal right now for tanks. So we are comparing this to the best of the best. And then total magicka cost here, again, that really just, it matters the efficiency. We can see that Polar Winds is very efficient at a ratio of 7.5 versus Darkcloak's 4.3 before the additional stamina cost. Now, I know there's going to be some of you guys out there like, oh, but Darkcloak gives you major resolve. Sure. I mean, if you're not getting it from someone who's running the Warden skill line, so you're not already getting it for free, sure, you can get it from, it does provide that for you. If you average that out over the standard cost of only a 20-second duration source of major resolve, you're looking at a magicka cost of 125 per second. Guys, this does not at all make up the difference. So what ZOS did is they said, well, we're making this better because now you only have to hold block, and I suppose people will use that more often, which may or may not be true. Sure, let's say it's true. So they're going to use it more often. It's going to be more. It's going to be better. It's going to be more better. So what does that end up with? Well, we still end up in this crazy situation where now to get our max heal, we have to be holding block. This has made Darkcloak continue to be a very, very niche skill. Are there situations you could use it? Yes. Are there situations where it's going to be hot garbage? More likely than not. There's going to be a ton of situations where that's going to be the case. Is it going to proc more often? I would say, again, probably yes. But is it that good? No. And is it anywhere near how good it should be? When you compare this to other skills, like you compare it to a DK, right? They're hardened armor. This is a very low-costing skill, provides us that major resolve, and provides us with a significant shield. And we can cast it all the time. There's no very complex, we don't have to be holding block and what have you. And the TLDR on this, guys, is it just really doesn't make sense to nerf this skill. I get they buffed it, and they were like, oh, they say in their head they buffed it. Oh, now you just got to hold block, so it'll be ticking a lot more often, which I think is probably true, but it is still very niche. And it is still like they didn't calculate in or add in the cost to stamina of this ability. So I think some things need to be tweaked. I think it should go back up to 5 seconds personally. I don't think that's very long for a heal over time. And there was nothing wrong with it before. And another thing, we never saw a whole bunch of people using this skill before. So it's not like it was broken at all to begin with. Nobody's really running this skill line anyways. So I really don't understand why they felt like they needed to nerf it. Besides actually I do. It's the basic reasoning of, oh, we buffed this a little bit. But we want to keep it at the same power level. So let's take some things down. Not taking it all into consideration that the cost of block, the stamina cost while holding it was going to be significant, especially for more skilled players or anybody really doing what they're supposed to do, which is letting go of block most of the time after a heavy attack and not holding block whenever you have really strong dots on you because you don't need to. The dots are not mitigated by your block resistance at all, and then they just also thought it would be a bigger heal now. Again, I still would love to see this up around that like 9,000 mark. I think that would be a much better place for it to tick. Then you get about 40,000 healing over those 4 seconds while holding block. So while I think this is an interesting skill, I think that, there is something that could be done here. It has never really fit with the Nightblade, making sense with like what a Nightblade should feel like and should play like. And then again, these nerfs just only make sense on paper. And even then, they only make sense if you don't actually add in all the factors that are affecting it. So I hope this is one of those things that ZOS will go back on. At the minimum, I would like to see this go to 5 seconds and just leave the duration there alone. If they just did that, I would be okay with like, let's try this out or what have you. It is still a very niche skill, still a skill that's not going to be used very often. And again, the cost in lost stamina recovery is huge. So it's really only useful if you already have more stamina than you need, you don't have any issues with stamina, and you want to hold block. So I think that's too niche, honestly. I think if it's going to be that niche, it should be an outstanding skill that would make people want to use it at some point. Anyways, just a quick take on this, guys. I think it's something that I'd really like to see on the PTS. I'm sure we'll be talking more about this in the coming weeks when we get some new patch notes next week. Thanks, everybody, for watching, and we'll catch you soon.